Author's note. Everyone considers my story to be true crime, but this book is a work of memory, my memory, and therefore is a memoir, and not an outsider's investigation of my life or crime. The feelings and emotions invoked are accurate. While some of my childhood memories have faded, these particular events remain vivid. To fill many gaps, I've relied on other people's answers to my questions. The typical disclaimers apply. Some names and other details have been changed or omitted to protect the privacy of individuals. Any resemblance between a fictionalized name and a real person is strictly coincidental. Where there are passages containing dialogue, quotations are used when I'm reasonably sure that the speaker's words are close to verbatim or that the speaker's actual meaning is accurately reflected. The story I share here is true to my memory, and these memories have shaped my perceptions, many of which are also shared here. This is how it was for me, what I experienced or believe I experienced. 1. Ça va. That's enough. When Dee Dee Blanchard was 24 years old, she gave life to me. When I was nearly 24 years old, I took life from her. I firmly believed that by doing so, I was saving the life she had guarded with all her might. Mine. Though she certainly saw my life as ours at best. We're two sides of the same penny, she liked to say. Meaning, although two things may look very different and be diametrically opposed, they're actually inseparable, two parts of the same whole. After being incarcerated for 8.5 years, I've been learning how to navigate life on my own, separately. My time served includes my combined imprisonment in 3 facilities. First, Greene County Jail in Springfield, Missouri, where I spent a little over a year. Then, for a month, I was transferred to a prison for women in Vandalia, until I was relocated to the Chillicothe Correctional Center to serve the remainder of my sentence. Given all that time, and with the help of therapy, family, friends, books, and my own writing, I have examined my life, actions, and relationships in great breadth and depth. At last, I've been given access to information, documents, records, therapy sessions. I'm like a detective noticing patterns, theorizing, having light bulb moments, and making new connections between things that used to make no sense to me. Still, while a year has passed since my release from prison, my scars, both emotional and physical, remain. The physical scars are like track marks that mock my progress. I'm not saying I can't heal. What I am saying is that the physical representation of my trauma just adds another dimension to the healing process. Like when I am enjoying one of life's simplest joys. Food, y'all! And I dive carefree into my first cut of steak or slurp of an oyster. But then I have to pause and strategize the chew. Without salivary glands and teeth, thanks to unnecessary surgeries and medications, my past will always puncture my present. The natural Louisiana sunlight that streams into my bedroom is far more forgiving than the harsh fluorescent lights at Chillicothe Correctional Center, where I was incarcerated for the 7 years after my sentencing. I have a full-length mirror now, where I can see the whole of me. In prison, I could only see glimpses of my body in an 8-inch square mirror, never quite sure whether all my parts went together. In the warm light, my scars are less jarring than I found them to be in the past. Or maybe time is softening the marks on my body. But sometimes, it's what is not visible that hurts us most. For me, that's true. For all the trauma inflicted on my body since childhood, it's the scar that isn't there that always travels with me. The scar that otherwise would have been there if I hadn't asked Nick to kill my mother. People really want to know, what was the final straw? When was the moment when I decided it was her or me? Here you go, y'all, on page 3. 1 month before the murder, my mother tried to cut my throat. At least, that's how I saw it. The cause of concern, suddenly, was my voice. It's so high-pitched. It's so squeaky. My mother complained to my ear, nose, and throat specialist. I thought my voice was distinct, like my uncommon name. Or maybe it was a family trait to be proud of. We both knew women on my mother's side of the family with similar high-pitched voices. Besides, Nick said my childlike chirp was sexy. So I didn't understand the issue, and I told my mother so. Never in front of the doctors, of course. I knew better than that. But on the way home, I went on, like, well, a squeaky wheel. There's nothing wrong with my voice, I said with a whimper, as she pushed me in my portable wheelchair to the parking lot where our car was parked, outside the hospital in downtown Kansas City. You heard the doctor. That voice of yours might mean there's a problem with your larynx. And that problem could be causing your sleep apnea, she said, her word final. No matter my sassing, we were going to go ahead and meet with the pulmonologist the ENT had just recommended, though we both knew very well I didn't have sleep apnea. In fact, by this point, the entire ruse had been up between us for a while. I was 23 and had tried to run away twice. I'd shot her with a BB gun. She'd chained me to the bed. I was getting older and much harder to control. The older I got, the more physical and harsher her punishments became. She stopped letting me use my custom-made Jazzy HD power wheelchair because she couldn't control it. I sensed she was becoming more erratic, more desperate. Only now do I see how her back was against the wall. The lie of the life she had created could have gotten her thrown in jail on a list of felony charges as long as the bayou. Her watchful eye grew keener as the possibility of me standing up or speaking out became more plausible. We had achieved an unspoken standoff. I knew she was a lying, manipulative criminal. She knew nobody would believe me. Her carting me off in search of a new surgery, I believed, was her attempt to secure control. When the pulmonologist spoke to my mother, it was as if I wasn't in the room. Why don't we do an exploratory surgery of her larynx? He suggested. A simple operation of the voice box will get to the bottom of any respiratory or vocal abnormalities. What I heard was, let's cut Gypsy's throat for no reason at all. I had previous surgeries on my neck and the scars brutalized me. But there was something about this particular surgery that felt more threatening than others, even more so than all the other body parts that had been constantly searched, explored against my will, without my consent. I turned to my mother. That sounds like it hurts. I don't want it. I don't want to do it. Tears didn't form. Rage did. My mother put her arm around my shoulder and pressed me close, a signal to quiet down that had been programmed long ago. It's simple, baby. It's painless. It will help, she said, side-eyeing the doctor. What I heard was, I don't care what you want. The doctor assured me there was little risk. He kneeled down to my eye level and spoke slowly to me, like English wasn't my native language. Who could blame him? He thought I had the mind of a 7-year-old. Except my trapped adult brain suddenly felt the urgency to avoid the surgery at all costs. I've thought a lot about my heightened reaction in this very moment. You know, the neck is considered the most vulnerable part of the human body. Of course, I didn't make this connection while sitting in the doctor's office, but I do think we are wired to defend our most vulnerable parts. The muscles and blood vessels and nerves in the neck are easily strained and damaged. The scars on my neck from previous surgeries, especially the one on my salivary glands, were so pronounced because the skin on the neck is very thin. I hate to overdo the parallels, blame it on therapy, but so many of the medical manipulations and interventions that I went through concern the part of me that allows for expression and truth. She muzzled my mouth shut at nighttime with a CPAP machine for my fake sleep apnea. It was so unpleasant to sleep that way. It felt like someone was taking a bicycle tire pump and forcing a ceaseless stream of air up my nose. She numbed my mouth with Orajel, so I'd drool and slur. She was responsible for my teeth falling out due to side effects of superfluous medications. By speaking for me and scripting my every interaction, she deprived me of finding my own voice. Now, the way I saw it, my literal voice, squeaky as it might be, could be taken from me. Her final play. My mother and the pulmonologist scheduled the operation with the same casual enthusiasm of planning a teeth cleaning. Despite my recent awakening to the reality of my life, It was here where I truly feared the scope of her malice. This surgery was completely unnecessary. Exploratory, the doctor called it. While all the other surgeries also had been unnecessary, this was the first occasion where I was privy to my mother's recklessness before the damage could be done. Was this the plan for the rest of my life? To because she could? If it wasn't voice box surgery, the odds seemed to be increasingly in favor of me dying on one of those operating tables. Mama, what if they cut me wrong and I lose my voice and can't talk? I don't think she would have minded that at all. We ignored one another on the car ride home. I looked out the window, the world passing me by, more quickly now, hazier. She steered the wheel, radar-like, navigating us back to the darkness of our house. When we entered the door, she went one way, and I beelined to the blue medicine basin. Her pills weren't there. Waiting for her to cross the room, without words, I rolled into the bedroom, which was suffocated with stuff. I didn't have to rummage too far to find the pill bottle, somewhere beneath a mess of clothes and kid costumes, hand-me-downs from well-meaning strangers. I shook 3 oxycodone into my mouth and swallowed them dry. Drenched in disillusion, I was just another thing she hoarded. High and numb now, I craved the fantasy world Nick and I lived in, so I messaged him. Nick and his kink world of ghastly rules was my haven, where I could let him act out anger on me that I did not myself know how to express. Do you remember when you told me you'd protect me from people who want to hurt me? I asked Nick. Yes, darling. Will you still protect me? Yes, Nick answered. Even from my mother? Yes. 2. Cajun.